Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. And it's not every day that you get to sit in a Airbnb and do a podcast, but getting to do that today here with James in Bedford, Pennsylvania. James, do you want to introduce yourself, who you are, your company, and just maybe a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Yeah, so my name is James Peight. Owner of Creekside Welding. It's a family-owned business. Right now I have Marcus working with me, our son, and son-in-law was working. He's in Honduras right now. So anyways, it's a family business, started in 2002. I bought the business, a going business back in 2002. Previous to that, I was doing some other things. I actually got my Class 3 license when I was 18, started hauling sheds. And I hauled sheds for a guy. His name was Dan Troyer. Hauled sheds for probably 7 or 8 years. And so things changed. I went to a couple other work things. And then in 2002, this business became available to buy. And so I bought the business. Moved it here to our property. Was working out of a small 30 by 40 shop, which was too small, but it worked. I was worked by myself for, not quite sure, probably 10 years. Marcus came online, built a bigger shop, where we build shed trailers is our main business. And we started building a shed mover. And so we've been doing some of that.
Busy guy, right?
Yes.
Busy guy,
Yes.
but
Yes.
as we just said, busy for the right reasons are
Yes.
always. And then let's see, outside of that, you are a pastor.
Yes. I'm a pastor, Christian Light Fellowship. You know, my business is a business that I do because I have to work. It's not my passion. My passion is God's kingdom, and we're trying to use our business for that purpose. And so, yeah, I'm a lead pastor here at Christian Light Fellowship here in Bedford, Pennsylvania. I was ordained in 2002. Same year I think I bought the business.
A lot happening in 2002.
A lot happening in 2002. And so, anyways, that is actually my greater passion. So we're just using the business for that purpose, and of course provides work for our family and also our son's family. So.
That's excellent. So yeah, we started out hauling sheds. Now you grew up in Pennsylvania.
Correct. Yes. Way back, I was born Old Order Amish. My dad's went to the New Order Church, went to the Conservative Mennonite Church. At that time, they were starting a church here at Bedford. We moved here 1981. And so that's a little bit the journey there. Of course, went from horse and buggy to cars to tractors and all that good stuff. So.
Been, quite the change. And then, so you start hauling sheds. Now, when you were hauling sheds, this was through mid-90s?
Yes. See, let me think a little bit. I was 18, and I was born in 68. So that would have been 20, right at the early 90s. Actually, I was 35, 86. It would have been late 80s.
Okay.
90s, yes.
So it would have been considerably different.
Yes.
The way that you approached hauling sheds.
Yes.
What would that have looked like then, late 80s, early 90s?
So my boss had a gas ton truck, had a 454 in it, pretty good horsepower, but bad gas mileage, of course. And it was a blue truck, had one big yellow revolving blinker on the top. And he bought his first trailer out of Lancaster. It had a tongue extension and a push-pull chain. I think it was probably a 20-footer, maybe 5-foot extension on the tongue. That's it. So he bought his first trailer. After that, he started building trailers. And that's actually where Creekside Welding started. So the guy I was working for started building shed trailers, and he was the one that invented the side shift. He was actually the one that started that whole idea.
Okay.
And, which went over really well, obviously. But so yeah, I was hauling part-time at that time. Went from part-time to full-time in the summer. Wintertime, we didn't have much hauling. I did some other driving, truck driving during the winter. And so that gave me a good background for building shed trailers, because I know what it's like to haul sheds. I know exactly what it's like, and also know what the trailer needs to do to be able to do the job.
So would you have been at that time, once like the shed trailer, that was it? I mean, once you unloaded the shed, of course you were moving smaller sheds probably back then compared to what's offered today, maybe no 40 footers or.
Correct. We did, the largest shed we did when I was hauling, I think, was a 14 by 32, which was pretty good size. By that time, we had bigger trailers as well. So I don't recall what our biggest shed would have been when I started. Don't remember that. We did stuff with pipes, and it was just, it was very different.
Yeah.
No wireless, which is a big deal these days.
Sure.
So, it was quite different.
Well, and pretty much everybody moved everything with a pickup.
Yes.
Back
Correct.
then.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, I mean, it's not so uncommon for me. I think I was going through, where was it? I was going through Columbus, Ohio on the way up here, and I didn't get a chance. I don't know if you follow any of the shed haulers stuff on Facebook, but you see the you on here or yawn here post. There was a light blue, almost sort of a pastel blue semi with a shed trailer on the back, and I didn't get a chance to get a picture, but it's not so uncommon to see them constantly.
Yes.
Moved with semis now, but interesting story. And I need you to educate me here just a little bit. Do I have it correct that Pate Weaver would have had Creekside at the time?
Yes, I bought the business from P.D. Weaver. He would have bought the business from Malin Fisher, possibly. So the original business was started by Danny. We called him Danny Troyer. He got a manufacturer to build trailers for him at some point, and then the next thing was, I don't know all of those details, but it went through a few hands. PD would have been the owner previous to when I purchased it.
Get ready for a sales revolution. Introducing Making Sales Simple, a complete online training course that unleashes the power of sales mastery, anytime, anywhere, on any device. Designed to transform anyone into a shed-selling success, Making Sales Simple guides you through the entire sales cycle, from the moment a customer steps onto the lot all the way through the crucial art of closing the deal. But that's not all. Our course equips you to expertly handle follow-ups, how to advertise your lot on social media, and supercharge your sales like never before. Enroll your sales team in the game-changing Making Sales Simple training course and witness a remarkable boost in sales right on the lot. Do you have a large team of salespeople? Manage and monitor each one through the sleek admin panel. Track their progress, dive into quiz results, and ensure they're not just learning, but mastering their newfound sales skills in real-world scenarios. Join our happy customers and witness your shed lots transform into thriving hubs. Sign up your entire team today. Unlock big savings with the code SGSAVE, because your team's success deserves nothing less.
It's so interesting. So PD grew up, or I guess was born, him and Mott's maybe, I don't know, within 100 miles of where I was born, and then to spend time up here, and then now they're down in North Carolina, and I always enjoy seeing those guys. My favorite story, one of my favorite stories always to tell, is whenever PD came up to me down in South Carolina at the Westwood shop. It was Liberty at the time, and he said, "I listened to your podcast, and you was married on March 4th of 2000. He said, "I was married on March 4th of 2000. And ever since then, it's just kind of become this, I don't know. He sent me a happy anniversary, whenever
Nice.
Our anniversary came around, and I was like, yeah, that's easy to remember, but super guy, and always appreciate their support and encouragement and things like that. They're just stellar people, really good people. So,
Totally agree.
so yeah, that's interesting to go from, and since then, Creekside Welding has been in the hands of James Peight.
Yes, correct. That
Okay.
would have been '02. We are in 23, so 21 years.
Nice little run. So how has the shed trailer building process changed in 20 years for you? Is that quite different?
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's a lot of options that came online. When I started building shed trailers, we did have wireless controls. They weren't as good as they are today. We did have that. You had the tongue, tail extension, side shift, push pull chain. That was about the size of it, and so that was how it was when I started. As we went along, obviously the big thing was sideways wheels came out, and so we had to be competitive. We had to start offering that as well, which was its own little curveball. A couple inventions that were actually put online by Creekside would have been steering tongue. Jason Kaufman, everybody knows Jason, I think.
Oh yeah, I would think so. They either know Jason or his counterpart Chasen, one of the two, exactly. I'm sure.
So he taught me into building the steering tongue and the leveling axles that are now being used by Creekside, Pine Hill. Those were big design changes, and so it's been a challenge going along. Right now, I'd say it kind of more or less plateaued. I would say the technical side of things is probably where improvements are taking place, like the electronics, wireless systems, things like that. The basic designs have kind of plateaued, I would say. Other than length, guys are always want to go longer. They want a light trailer, a strong trailer, and so those are some of the challenges that we currently face. Components was a big deal when the whole COVID thing went through. That was a real challenge in the business and industry. Everybody knows that, but yeah, I would say that's kind of the size of it.
So there's a few defining kind of marks of Creekside, and being able to differentiate that from others. Do you feel like that's important, is to kind of differentiate your service, or do you feel like a lot of the, like 80% of the shed trailers are kind of the same, and then there's maybe 20% that's different with a few different components? Or do you feel like the idea is to kind of create I'm asking this question for this reason mainly. You do fabrication, which means you have to oftentimes tap into your creativity.
Yes.
To be able to build something or do something. And I imagine a lot of that's trial and error.
Yes, it is actually, yes.
So
yes.
What do you envision that, like, for the most part, the trailers are kind of similar with a few differences, or do you try to create something that's different than most?
Yeah, so there's a couple of defining things for my ideas of trailers. And it's interesting to me, the first thing I look for when I see a shed going down the road is what trailer's underneath it. And it's not hard to tell usually. There's just little things that to look for that says, oh, that's a Creekside, that's a Pine Hill, whatever. But having worked on shed trailers and been around shed trailers, one of the things that's really important to me is to be able to work on them easily. I won't mention any names, but we've had a trailer or two in here that I'm like, what were these guys thinking when they built the trailer? Because I had to do the repairs and it was really, really unhandy. So when we go through, when I think about building a trailer, redesigning things, I'm always thinking, how can I do it so that it's easy to work on? It's easy to get to, easy to work on, simple, functional, and then, of course, low cost as possible. So that's kind of the tightrope that we walk. And I think we've done pretty good. One of the advantages for Creekside is we're a small business. We do, if you want something particular to your taste or whatever, we try to accommodate that. The other thing we've offered that has clearly been a big plus is service on the phone. So I answer the phone. I know my shed trailers, and the guys, they even have my cell phone, which, you know, how that goes sometimes.
Not always the best thing, right?
So anyways, but I count it a privilege if somebody's out in the field and they have a problem, Saturday afternoon, whatever, I don't mind if they call me.
Yeah.
And I can walk them through and hopefully help them. So,
yeah, that's typically the smaller the company, the greater the customer service.
Yes.
You can use that to your advantage. There's some, if you can become a large company and maintain that exemplary like customer service, that's really imperative. And I think that's I feel like I should do a whole episode just based off of customer service, not just from shed trailers, but the whole industry in general. I feel like a lot of people would benefit from that. We're a big fan of like making raving fans of any business that we get involved in. I think that your best salespeople are the people who buy your trailers and just, you know,
correct.
people who use your services or whatever it is, you know, product. So, I'm a big fan of reviews and having happy customers help sell for you. And in your line of work, shed haulers, they're a fun group, rough and tough group of guys that always, I don't know. They're just, I've always said they lead from the beginning with the industry. I tend to have grown up in the sales side, but I've told the story before, you know, when I was in the military, we drove, you know, semis and trailers, and I hauled equipment. And I'm surprised way back in, you know, 98 when I come out of Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and basic training, and I was in the National Guard and drove, you know, semis up to Wisconsin. We were hauling tanks, and all these guys were truck drivers, and all these guys were in their regular civilian jobs and I can't believe I hadn't ran into a shed hauler in my time in the military there, in the National Guard. But, had something been available back then, it would have been perfect. It would have been something I could have seen myself doing. But it didn't work out as such, and God had other intentions and plans, and that's how it came together. So, but the haulers are great. We're actually getting ready to go down to the Georgia barbecue, in Montezuma. I missed the Texas one this year. That's 2 years in a row that I've had something come up. I messaged Caleb, and I just felt terrible. And Mervin and those guys, I'm sure they do a good job. We've been out to the barbecue with Travis Parks and JD Perry and Cliff Knapp there in Southern Indiana. Actually sponsored something this year with them, so that was kind of fun, and told them if I can be of some kind of assistance. So I love getting the interviews from these guys.
Awesome.
Talking about shed hauling, talking about the in-depthness of, well, I mean, you know, shed haulers have not just etched their you know, presence into this industry. Some businesses that have started from a guy who was hauling sheds. I mean, there's RTO providers now that started in the shed business. So, I mean, there's a little bit of everything out there. And those guys always do a good job. And next year, it sounds like they're going to be in North Carolina for the Big Bash with Jason and Sam. So excited to be there in March of 2024. It'll be big. I can almost guarantee. I know Pennsylvania is big. I know this one will be too. There's tons of shed business in North Carolina, and it's just kind of easy to get to for a lot of guys that bring rigs. So I'm expecting to see a really big turnout, and we plan to be there. So, hey, Deanna, I need to write a new ad for Shed Hub. Give me some ideas.
Why don't you do something catchy like the insurance commercials do all the time, where they just repeat the same thing over and over?
Like a little jingle or something like that.
Yeah,
But wouldn't that be embarrassing?
that is kind of the point.
What type of music?
Try rap.
Shed Hub helps you sell shed.
Maybe country.
Shed Hub helps you sell sheds.
Rock and roll.
Shed Hub helps you sell sheds.
Maybe just go back to your normal writing style.
Shed Geek and Shed Hub are now collaborating to make for a better customer experience. I want to save you some money. Shed Hub is focused on signing up the next 500 customers. We're calling it the Next 500 Plan.
Real creative.
You think it'll help if I sing again?
I'd rather you not.
Well, that makes two of us.
So what's the next 500 plan?
The Next 500 Plan is simple. This will include 100 listings per month, per location, along with the Brand Builder website. And the plan will last for 1 full year.
But how do they save money?
It only costs $39 a month. There's never been a better time to sign up. Just go to geek.shedhub.com, click subscribe, enter your name, email, and payment information, and you will be contacted by a Shed Hub employee to get you onboarded for just $39 per month. Shed Hub helps you sell shed. Yeah, very cool. All of that stuff, very neat. James, let's talk a little bit about one of your newest adventures. Obviously, everyone's familiar, if you've been hauling sheds, that there's a few apparatuses out there that can be used to haul sheds. But tell me a little bit about the Shed Boss, like what it is, how the idea came together, how it works. Just give me a little detail there.
Yeah, I should have looked up what year it was. It was after I was building shed trailers for a while. Actually, it was probably in the 06, 07 downturn, possibly.
Okay.
We were really slow in work, and not quite sure if it was then, but so my brother-in-law was building sheds with vinyl and metal siding. At that time, I guess the mule would have been out already. He wanted something to be able to move a shed that he didn't have to push against the wall or against the siding, a vinyl metal siding. So he talked me into building a machine. It was just a start from scratch. We kind of knew what we wanted it to do. Didn't really have. That's about all that we had. So we were throwing ideas around and trying to figure out a way that you can pick up a building from the ground without the machine tipping over and all of that, and still be able to drive the building around. So the Shed Boss is what we finally came up with. We had to change some things from the time we started till now. Obviously, we changed a few things, made some improvements. But at that time, I might have built, I don't know, 6 machines or so. And then I didn't have time to build them. I just kind of put it on the shelf, stayed busy building shed trailers till, it's a year ago, 2 years ago. We needed some, it was nice to have some filler work between trailers. And so we built another shed mover. I put it on Facebook, and people were very interested. Sold really quickly. So we started again building them. We started building them again, and now we're building them periodically. Our shed trailers are still the primary, our primary focus, but we're doing this kind of in between whenever we have time.
So this Shed Boss kind of, the idea is that it doesn't counterbalance against the building. It
Right.
sort of counterbalances against the ground.
Yes.
With a leg that moves into position through hydraulics,
Yes.
of course, and then the weight of the building gets lifted onto the, I don't know what you would call the platform there that it lifts on,
Like the mast
Yeah.
slides back over the machine. Yes.
and then so you'll lift that up, and then it actually slides back where the weight is kind of sitting on the machine.
Yes.
And then you can put dolly wheels underneath it and then come around to the other side and move that. So what's sort of been like, you said the response has been really good. What's been sort of the, I want to make sure I'm fair to Cardinal here,
Yes.
because they've been a, phenomenal company in this spot. So, in their space, and Steve's always super pleasant for me to see at different places and things like that. And, those guys are great and build a great product. So I'll make sure that we say that because they do a great job. But kind of what you were going for is you want to say an in between. I want to make sure I
Yes.
don't represent your product inadequately, but like something that was a little bit more price point, but maybe not the complete functionality of what the mule offers.
Yeah, excellent point. Yeah, so it just happened. I mean, I don't know that we started with that idea, but so a lot of guys know about the Easy Mover as a very basic machine, and then the Mule, of course, which is a very complicated machine, and both machines. I mean, you have a high price machine and a lower price machine, but nothing in between, both in pricing and performance. So this machine actually fits in between there quite well. It does not. In other words, the Mule outperforms our machine without, there's things the Mule can do that this machine won't do. But this machine will do a lot more than the Easy Mover will do as well. So it's kind of an in-between machine, both in performance and cost.
What is like the drawbacks? Is a large building maybe you can't move, or small buildings? What's sort of the things that let's throw the negative aspects out there. So, and I would kind of refer to that as like the realistic expectations of, where you see it not performing as well. And then we can talk about the good as well.
Yes. So you have our machine has one arm that goes out and goes underneath the building and picks it up. So you have one pivot point on the one end, the dolly wheels at the other end, of course. And so you're not going to be as stable when you go on the side of a hill. Rough terrain is going to be a little more of a challenge. So stability would be a big deal. There's a lot of variables in that, of course. This machine works well on more level ground, more solid ground. What else? I'm always listening for the guys that are using them, because I want to know, what the limitations are. I don't know what the max is that it'll handle. It depends how the building's built, depends on the ground conditions and all of that, but I know it will handle at least a 12 by 32. And then, so the Mule will carry a lot more than that, especially your bigger mules have just more torque. This one probably won't have the torque to push through soft dirt. Doesn't have wireless controls. It's all manual, which can both be
good
negative.
and bad.
Yes,
right?
Negative, yes. So yeah, it's a very simple machine. Again, the idea there was cost effective, something that works, kind of target those people that don't want to spend as much money. I will say that this machine does work quite a bit better on light buildings. The Mule tends to fall over on light stuff. This one, you don't have that issue. So anyways, yeah.
So no, I get it. And like there again, positivity is the message. This is not a, hey, we're better than episode. Right. And we just typically don't do those anyway. We try to shine on positivity and while being realistic. Also, you're a pastor, your heart's for God. We talk about our faith on the podcast a lot. So like we never do a gotcha podcast.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? Those guys, like I said, have put out a tremendous product for several years. So just want to be clear. Same with Creekside Welding. There's no animosity towards any other.
No, of course
It's
not.
just telling your story.
Yep.
It's talking about the product you offer, how it came together, and some of the features and benefits of what it does offer. And one of the cool things is to be able to not brag, but to, be satisfied that you're putting out something at a price point. You can spend a lot of money on a rig if you're a shed hauler first getting into it. And, we've definitely heard some stories of guys who got in and said, man, I didn't know my numbers, and I didn't prepare and plan for, what the expectations would be for running a business, which is why we always talk about vertical integration in the shed industry. If you're starting a shed hauling business, you can make a living hauling sheds. If you're selling sheds, you can make a living doing that. If you're building sheds, you can make a living doing that. Rent to own, you can make a living doing that. To do them all together is sort of like starting 3, 4, 5, 6 different businesses.
Yes, correct.
So there's a lot more that goes into it. And with hauling, you could to focus on it, you could get in $250,000 easy.
Yes.
As a new shed hauler, if you're in a semi with a brand new mule and a brand new trailer, and you need some dedicated routes and guaranteed work, I'm sure those things could become very concerning to you quickly if work dries up. So.
Yes.
Have you ever had a customer ask you about how to supply power to their shed? Do you sell electrical kits as an upsell for your sheds currently? Do you want an easy, no-hassle option to offer for your customers when they want to add electric to their sheds? Check out EcoEthics Solar. EcoEthics Solar is looking for shed manufacturers and shed dealers who want to be able to provide a solar electric option to their line of sheds. With EcoEthics Solar, you can purchase the Sunsaver, a solar product specifically designed with the shed owner in mind. Want to offer a larger product that can operate a full tiny home? At EcoEthics Solar, they have the necessary product, training, and capacity to meet your customers' needs. Installation for the Sunsaver is simple and takes just 45 minutes. You can even install it right there on your sales lot or at the manufacturing facility. EcoEthics Solar even provides hands-on in-person training if necessary. Plus, they will provide you with video tutorials and handouts with specific installation instructions that keeps adding a solar-powered electrical system to your shed fast and simple. In many cases, the end user can even perform the installation once the shed is delivered to their home. If you are interested in purchasing a unit for display and then drop shipping your orders, or even ordering multiple units to have available as you build, contact my friends at EcoEthics Solar at 336-250-1284 or email sales@ecoethicsolar.com. Price point. Is it okay to talk about price point?
Yep.
Okay. And you have one model
Yes.
right now.
Yes.
So, okay.
One model. We don't plan to build anything different at this point. It could happen in the future. I don't know. But price point, our machine is priced at $8,500 without the dollies. You add the dollies to it. It goes to $89, I think it is, something like that. Plus, if you come here, you got to pay the tax. But
Yeah.
we do ship. We can ship them. They're able to be shipped.
We'll make sure to put some videos out there. And you have some stuff on Facebook, I think, now that kind of shows it operating. Do you have anything that shows it operating with actually moving a shed?
Yes, you can go to YouTube and search for Shed Boss. It should pop up. We were just a very short video moving a small shed, but shows you pretty well how it works.
Okay. Yeah, very neat. We'll try to get some of that footage and put on the YouTube side for those who actually view the podcast as opposed to listening to it just through the audio outlets. I did learn a few things. I figure that's a good time for me to kind of address that. A few things are going away. If any of you listen via Google Podcast, which I know some of you do based off of the data that we receive from Buzzsprout, that will, I think, be going away. It seems like YouTube podcast is going to be sort of all the new hoorah or whatever. So I would encourage you guys to focus on that. We'll probably get an outlet there to make sure that we can be viewed there and heard there. Podcast, so the terminology of podcast is changing, James. A lot of people wonder, is a podcast audio only, video only? Is it both? I try to watch and keep up with a lot of this information regularly, just because it affects obviously our outlet. So we try to stay on top of that. So Stitcher went away. I know Google Podcast, I think, is going away. There's just some changes in some of the tech spaces. I mean, Squarespace buying Google domains, so like, I try to keep up with some of that regularly. James, it's kind of funny. You're a hands-on, fabrication creator type person. My dad was a mechanic. He was a maintenance foreman at a kitty litter plant, and would take. I remember he had an '86 Toyota that he could get the transmission out of that thing in 2 hours and back in 2 hours. Him and his brother, they'd seen him rebuild stuff, and I never quite caught that. I always would make jokes that if I tried to help my dad in the shop, I'd usually oftentimes be met with like a crescent wrench flying by my head, if I wasn't, he was in the job and he wasn't, wanting to be bothered. But, so I've sort of by default begun to learn these different things in the way the tech world has begun to work. But I'm excited. My son's going to school for computer science. So, he kind of picked up on that trade easily. But I'm always fascinated walking in the shop, seeing all the bandsaws, seeing all the different tools, plasma cutters, things that I have some familiarity with, but not by any means do I need to be left alone to my own to try and do anything. You said that you're let me finish up with Shed Boss. If someone's looking, let's finish that. If someone is looking for information on that, first of all, you're booked way out on Creekside.
Yes.
But still taking orders, I'm sure.
Yes, we are taking orders, yes.
And typically speaking, you're not mass producing the Shed Boss.
Exactly.
You have sold quite a few of them already, but it is nice work for slow times and things like that. But if people want to know just more about it, how to contact you, if they've got questions that I can't answer, if they contact me, who do they contact? How do they contact you? And what's sort of the avenue that you think is best?
Yes. So we have a website, creeksidewelding.com. Phone number would be 814-624-0814. Our website is way outdated. Our YouTube and Facebook is a lot more current, especially Facebook. If you go to Facebook, Creekside Welding Shed Haulers should pop up there. I generally keep fresh pictures on there. Just an interesting note on the podcast idea. When I think of podcast, I think of audio, just somebody talking. Well, I didn't realize till just recently that is changing. And so from a pastoral ministry standpoint, those are really good. There's a lot of YouTube Christian podcasts that are great these days. So very good tool. And obviously both spiritually and for business purposes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't separate I say this all the time. I don't know how to separate my life, my ministry, my work. They all just kind of run cohesively. That's oftentimes you'll hear me a lot of times say a lot of times I don't understand that's just business, kind of reply, because I'm like, it's never just business with me. It's always personal. If you build on relationship in business, then of course it's personal whenever, things go awry or, it's, of course it's personal. To me, it all kind of, it's so intertwined. I can't undo it.
Yes. Totally agree.
So I kind of think that, whether I'm hearing the message that Jesus really intended to put out or not, I tend to think for me, it's one, keep it simple, love the one in front of you today. So I try to start with that.
Yes.
I don't try to complicate it too much past that. But beyond that, if I'm doing something in business, I've learned that not everything's about business. Sometimes he leads you down that path to pray for someone or to be in front of a conversation where someone needed you to be there. My wife reminds me all the time, you were there for the moment you needed to be, and then you moved on. Because me and my selfishness and my own flesh is like, oh man, I could have stayed there, or I could have killed that, or I could have made a lot of money, or I could have had this, or could have had that. And oftentimes it's you were there for the season that you were there for, and you did what you were supposed to do.
Good.
We're imperfect.
Yes.
But thank goodness we follow a gracious and kind and forgiving, Father that would lead us. And so I appreciate your passion and your ministry as well too. I call the podcast a form of ministry for me. I'm not an ordained pastor. I've never been called to. The only thing I ever felt called to do in terms of ministerial work was prison ministry. Hebrews 13:3 says, "Be with those in prison as though you were in
Awesome.
prison." Deanna's father was a prison guard for 28 years. Her brother's a prison guard. I worked as a prison guard for several years. My brother works as a prison guard. Like, there was a lot of work involved in like jail and prison work, or tons of my friends or family are involved in that. I always make the joke that growing up, I was as likely to be in as I was be working there. There's not, and some of our friends maybe would fit that. But, you know, hey, God's good and you know, delivers us from that, right? But so yeah, all of that stuff is just a part of my life. I've even mentioned before, I know there's some companies that aren't terribly excited about working with me for that reason, and I would basically say to those companies, if they're offended at my talking about Jesus or even the occasional politics, then be offended.
Yeah.
Be offended is my response to you.
Yes.
Right. So
Excellent.
be offended, because I can't not talk about the goodness of God and what he's done for me. Now, I don't color myself perfect, James.
Yes, I understand.
Let me be clear. There's a lot of faults,
Yes.
past faults, probably some things that I haven't forgiven myself for, but then also there's this imperfect person that continues to be.
Totally.
But I'm trying to get it right each day. Right. And I think you have to be, as our pastor says, you got to be connected to the power source to do that.
Amen.
And that's what allows you to be able to, I mean, even the Bible says, you know, raise a child up in the ways of the Lord, and he'll not depart from that, because he'll remember. And I think I joked with you about our church attendance as a child growing up. You know, our parents, you know, would drag us to church, and then at times we would be completely absent from church. And me and my wife had our own struggles with managing that and understanding that. So we can't say enough about what good the Lord has done for us. And if that means that I don't do a podcast because someone shuts that down or doesn't support that, then so be it. But I can't not talk about that.
Hello, Shed Builder. With each new year, builders are searching for ways to increase efficiency and safety. Simply put, the Joey Pivot Lift is an investment into your building crew and your bottom dollar. Manufacturers are able to save hours and dollars by making painting, decking, and roofing a safer and quicker process. The Joey Pivot Lift turns 360 degrees inside of a 50-inch radius and lasts an average 8-hour workday before needing charged. It has a minimum platform height of 61.5 inches, allowing you to reach into areas with ease versus the traditionally used 6-foot ladder. No tripping or falling hazards exist, and no need to climb down and restock. For roofers, simply load your metal on the lift prior to getting started and throw your roofing screws into the built-in tool tray. Pricing is just $8,295 for the 60 series, $9,685 for the 70 series, and $10,675 for the roofing model. For exact pricing that includes tax and delivery to your door, contact the Shed Geek at info@shedgeek.com or dial 618-309-3648. We're raising building standards with Joey Pivot Lift.
For that reason, your passion is pastoral care, and you have a church here. Do you intend to stay here in Bedford? Does it seem like that's going to be long term?
It looks like it. We lived on this very piece of ground since we're married in 1991, which was 32 years.
Yeah.
32 years ago. So yeah, it looks that way at this point. And just a couple things. I totally agree with what you shared there. Creekside Welding is not a perfect company either. In fact, I had, just in the last month, I had 2 trailers that the tongue failed on them. And so in case like that, my concern is always do the right thing. It's going to cost us some money to repair them, obviously. I always feel bad when things like that happen. But we try to treat people the way we want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
And also, many times business practices can be an offense to the gospel. And I never want that to happen. So I'm always very conscious of that. I try to go out of my way to make sure that my Christianity does not become distasteful because of business practice.
Right.
I would much rather lose some money and maintain a good testimony for the Lord, rather than go after the dollar at all costs. That's not who I am at all.
Well,
So I appreciate what you shared there on all of that as well.
couldn't agree more. I always, the phrase I always use is Jesus is not for sale. I don't sell Jesus with my business, but he comes as part of the package.
Yes.
So if we're, and that doesn't mean that I get it right with each one, but I love to sit down and have a conversation about the Bible or people's faith or their ministry, and, hear about different things, whether it be prison ministry or addiction recovery ministry. I mean, my, Dylan, one of the guys that some of the guys would be familiar with, and in Shed Geek Marketing, they'll be able to go back and hear his story if they listen to a previous podcast. Wow. And just, what God's brought him through, and me being able to watch him do what he does, and just relationships restored and things like that. It's really about community. And I would encourage you, to absolutely use the podcast for what it is, for ministerial reach. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to be a resource for you to go to. And if I can help, answer those questions or just make things easier, to me, that's just God's people working together. And so if you ever have questions, feel free to ask. And yes, there are some really good Christian podcasts out there. In my travels, I spend all of my time listening to audiobooks, listening to podcasts, and occasionally music. And like I said, take away from this what you will, but I would tell you I'm imperfect, but I'll point you toward him.
Yes.
He's provided me with all the gifts. He's provided me with my family, this business, this podcast, and any other thing that I do. So I owe all that I have to him. Amen. So I could not, within good reason, stop and say, for your business, I won't promote him. Awesome. Then we just won't do business. I give, there's so many things we could, I'm sure, talk about. Shed Boss, you think that's going to be maybe some full-time something for you?
Could happen. It seems like the demand is there. We just right now we're just doing the next thing. We don't really have time, to do everything we're supposed to do. Our lead time is end of next year for trailers. The Shed Boss, we try to fit in between. So generally that's a 4 to 8 week, lead time, depending. Okay. So yeah, I don't know what the future holds there. We're definitely going to keep building them the way it looks, and I expect that it'll be something that will keep selling as well.
You have one in here now that's sold?
It's sold. It's gone to Wisconsin. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you got a couple trailers out here. Are those sold?
Those are sold. Everything's sold.
I can't buy nothing. That's what you're telling me?
Like I should start building used trailers, right?
Yeah, I love it. No, I think that's good. At the end of the podcast, what I've been doing recently is giving the guest an opportunity to turn the microphone around. Ask me a question or two or three, whatever suits you. If you have any, whether it be faith, podcast, personal, you name it. Free reign to just ask a question or two, and I'll try to answer if you have any. If you don't, we'll move on to prayer. But if you do, feel free to ask away.
Yeah, no, I don't really. Preachers have all the answers, right?
There you go.
There's no question that came to my mind. I'd like to make a comment, though,
sure.
In light of what you said about striving for perfection. So this is a pastoral tidbit. It's a biblical tidbit, I guess. But perfection comes by faith. You don't have to strive for perfection. Now, you do your best, obviously, but Jesus died so that we can be made perfect by faith. And when we believe in that gift, we become perfect. We're not perfect. We don't do things perfectly, but we are perfect. And I think that's one of the greatest truths that will bring a lot of joy and freedom to people that are, especially from religious backgrounds, that are trying to earn their perfection. You cannot earn perfection. It's a gift. And when you receive that gift, you want to live for God, which causes you to make decisions that are pleasing to God and do the right things. So I just had to say that.
Hey, I will put a pulpit out here. We'll do a whole new episode before long. People will be wondering what happened with the Shed Geek podcast. Like, that's okay. I just, there was a time in my life where I questioned so many things. And, I don't question those things anymore. Now it's sort of to me, it's the journey. It's the giving away of my will to his will and things like that. I quote all the time, obedience is greater than sacrifice. And, as much as it's difficult to hear, it's because it is faith. I just talked with someone yesterday that said, business guys like proven processes. They like measurable results. Faith is the opposite of that thing. So it really shocks and rocks the business world whenever you have to depend on, something like faith as part of the process. It's easy to be successful and then look back and rely on faith. It's much harder to rely on faith in the process of attempting to become successful.
Very true.
And that rattles the business world. But all of my personality tests come back as trailblazer and somebody who's not of the norm. Not of the norm. That only makes sense in that, even starting a podcast where it hadn't existed before, even in the face of adversity, or people say it wouldn't, exist or work. I mean, even seeing have an opportunity that I didn't know was going to happen. Offers on the podcast, job offers, things like that. It's kind of crazy, but staying the course, putting him first. Amen. And I think that's all that matters. James, you want to pray us out of here? And we appreciate you being a guest today, and appreciate as much of the conversation related around your ministry as much as Creekside and Shed Boss.
Yes. So. Thank you. Yes. Let's pray. Thank you, Father, for your goodness to us. Thank you for providing business opportunities. We thank you most of all for your love and your mercy toward us. And I pray as we live our lives here on the earth, we would be faithful and we would proclaim the glory of your name, and let your kingdom come and your will be done here on the earth as it is in heaven. We pray your blessing on all of the listeners and each of their lives. May we be found faithful and using the time and the money and the resources you've given us to bring honor and glory to your name, for you are worthy. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. I appreciate it so much, you being a guest today. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too.
Good.
Hey, this is Mo Lunsford here with the Shed Geek, and it's coming up on Thanksgiving, and we want to say thank you to the listener and those guests. We appreciate it, and we look forward to 2024.